Hi, I'm Dhruti Shah, and this is my podcast, Have You Thought About? I'm a writer, a journalist, a poet, and I love to find out about what interests people are pursuing, especially if they're managing to mash them up in lots of unusual ways. And in each edition, I'm going to chat with someone I find particularly interesting and who's been able to fit together things in their life or profession, or both, that you don't necessarily think of as an obvious match. You're about to hear me chatting with Sheetal Parmar, a journalist, a cat whisperer, and a big fan of the Terminator. I started by asking her to explain more about why integrity drives her. Sheetal, we met thanks to a cultural leaders course called Claw a few years ago, and one thing that stood out for me was you have a lot of integrity, and I really would love to know more about how that actually drives you.
I've been thinking about integrity a lot over the last, I would say, maybe about 3 or 4 years. Nobody wakes up and thinks, I have integrity. But what you do is you try and lead your life in a way that you think treats other people well, but also you treat yourself well. And that has been much more prevalent in my life over the last 3 or 4 years, I have to say. Where you get these mind moments, or you get these episodes in your life where you think, why is this happening to me? How am I going to deal with this? And rather than questioning the what, it's almost like, okay, why and how and what then does it lead to, right? And I found over the years that instead of trying to analyze other people's behaviors or to analyze my own behavior, actually, what I needed to do was cross that bridge and get to the point where I felt like, hold on a minute, did I use my integrity? Did I show my integrity? Did I utilize my integrity? And why, honestly, I can say that it's one of the most important things in my life, because if I don't have that, I don't think I'm whole as a person. Sounds so profound. But I think integrity is one of those things that you can go to bed at night and say to yourself, do you know what? I dealt with that situation, be it your cat, be it your husband, be it the neighbor, be it the shop assistant, with integrity. And that allows me to sleep at night, even for a few hours.
Always up for sleeping tips, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
Anything that helps you sleep at night, I don't think isn't necessarily a bad thing. But how long did it take you to get to this point, I guess, of deconstruction, but also being able to be comfortable, uncomfortable with what integrity is?
I was always about questioning why I behaved a certain way and why people around me weren't behaving in a certain way. And I think that over analysis, let's call it that, to be kind to the other people, because I think you can get stuck in this quagmire of, this person's behaving this way towards me. I don't want to know them. I think it's important that you do analyze, or that you look at your own behavior and think, what is it about this person, this other person, that is making them behave this way? And often what I've found now, when I think back to episodes in my, let's say, work life, where I've not really gelled, or I thought I did with my team or certain members of my team, but I haven't gelled with them. I put that down to my integrity and the fact that I think I have loyalty to people, a cause, a way of life, what the truth is. And that tends to be my overriding impression of what integrity is. So with age, with kind of certainly since I've been in my sort of mid 30s, I've been much more comfortable with saying to myself, this is where my integrity's at, and I can't compromise that for somebody else's whim. Therefore, in the last, let's say around 5 years, I've made decisions in my life that have solely been about, where's my integrity at?
On
Yeah.
that note, it sounds beautiful, it sounds positive, and it definitely sounds like a have you thought about, but surely you've come across situations that are conflict, which aren't always easy to work through. So,
It's not been an easy road, Druti. It's not been, oh, let's wake up, hey, I have integrity, everything's going to be great, and it's all a bed of roses. It's actually recognizing that integrity can pull you in lots of different ways. And I have been pulled in lots of different ways. And I've had to make some very, very tough decisions about my life, about who I am, about, what I do, about what I stand for. So, for example, one of the big things, lots of reasons why this certain incident, I call it an incident, but it's actually a major element of my life. And that is, me deciding to leave my job, which I had thought about for many years, but I don't think I ever had the guts to do it. And it was only when I had, I suppose, a moment of realization, but also this trigger. There were lots of triggers, let's put it that way. There were lots and lots of triggers leading up to this point. Me being stuck at home with COVID didn't help, but it also helped actually because it helped me to figure out what was important. It helped me to figure out that I didn't need my job to be me. And I think that for a lot of us who work for a big organization, who end up doing the job that we've always, always dreamed of doing since we were kids, you can get lost in the feeling that this is what you've always wanted in your life and this is what it's going to be. There was integrity at the heart of that. There was integrity at the heart of me joining, for example, my former employer. There was integrity at the heart of everything that I did in that place. But I felt as if I didn't get any integrity back from the organization. And so that was one of the big drivers of me in terms of wanting to feel valued and really taking a huge risk with a cost of living crisis approaching in leaving my job and saying, you know what, I want more and I want different. Yeah, if I'm honest with myself, and let's say we're talking about integrity, so you have to be honest with yourself, it's not been an easy road. There have been times when I've woken up and thought, what the hell am I going to do with my life? Who the hell am I? Have I made the right decision? And I have to say that last question is the one that I'm always able to answer a lot quicker than the others, because it's almost instant to me that I have made the right decision, but that this is a tough period. This is the sort of thing that many, many people don't have the opportunity to explore. Who am I going to be? What is my life going to be? So there is a certain amount of privilege there, but it doesn't feel like privilege when you're thinking, oh my God, I've had no money come in this month and you're using up your savings. So it has been tough. Yes, I'm not going to lie. You've got to be prepared for it. And I think I was, I allowed myself a certain number of months to feel prepared, to feel like, okay, it's not going to be easy. Things that I'm going to have to do without this cloak of, I'm a journalist working for this organization, because it is a bit of a cloak and we all wear it when we're working for it because we all believe in it. And when you haven't got it anymore, not only is it liberating, it's also incredibly frightening. It's a bit like Harry Potter relying on his powers without his wand or without his, invisibility cloak or whatever. It's all these things that kind of make you a person, and all you're left with is your integrity, right?
I think those are all valid points. And as you say, we both worked at a big organisation, a big broadcaster. We've now moved on, trying out different paths. And a lot of the questions that you're raising are definitely questions that I'm thinking about on a regular basis and talking to others. It feels like we're very much at a reckoning, but finding that path is not necessarily easy. So thank you for that. One thing I do want to sort of turn to, as I think that's a lot to ponder on integrity and really important, and I hope the audience likes it as well. The other thing that I really like about you, and I actually want to learn in terms of what have you learned from the behaviour of others, because you spend a lot of time with 2 cats, and I'd love to know, what is it that they teach you? So you're a bit of a cat whisperer, let's say that. What have you learned about them that has helped drive your own behaviour perhaps?
Yeah, it's interesting. No one's ever called me a cat whisperer. And do you know what? I really like it. Often when I talk about my cats, it's almost like it's, people are not insulting me, but there is this thing of, oh, you live with 2 cats. That must mean that you're a bit of a cat lady. And cat ladies always had this like really negative connotation attached to it. I suppose I was reluctant to let people into my sort of cat behavior journey, but I've always been a glutton for stray animals ever since I can remember. I remember where I used to live as a child growing up, which was, not a very well-to-do, it's like an estate in East London, and a lot of us kids, all age groups, used to hang out together, the estate kids, and all different backgrounds. I remember this family who lived just outside of the estate, and they had a beautiful dog called Casey. And I remember whenever we used to get together in the holidays and they used to come over to our estate and just hang out because there was a little park thing there. And they used to bring Casey with them. Casey was a beautiful dog, a family pet. And Casey got ill. Casey developed, I think now what it was cancer, or certainly she had very, very visible tumours on her head. And they abandoned her, most likely because of the cost of treatment. Now, when I think about it, I was probably about 7 at the time, so I don't really know the ins and outs. And it wasn't the sort of thing where I would say, you need to do something about your dog. Like, and we weren't in a position to take on a dog. I mean, we're an Asian family. Asian families at the time didn't have pets, although I always used to sneak in a cat from somewhere. So Casey, because she knew us and she knew where friendly people lived, she'd been abandoned, she used to scratch at our front door. And like, I used to be quite ill as a kid, so I was home a lot from school. And I just remember, like, I used to open the door to her, even though I wasn't allowed to open the door, but I knew it was Casey. And I used to feed her. It was like we didn't have dog food. I literally used to feed her like crackers and biscuits and things, and give her water. And it just, you know what? Even now I think about Casey, and it really upsets me that a former family pet who was loved, literally loved and cherished, was then abandoned by the same people who loved and cherished her. For me, pets and animals complete a home. And for a long time, I didn't have a cat. But again, I always befriended stray cats. I can tell a stray cat because they look dirty. They're usually the desperation for food or for human contact. It's really interesting how they crave it, but they fear it at the same time. Because most pets, I mean, I've even had a feral cat who took up home outside my parents' front door. And it's really interesting because I just used to sit next to this feral cat, and this feral cat, absolutely feral, born on the fields opposite my parents' house. And the feral cat was amazing with me. Maybe it's just like it can just sense that I'm not going to hurt it, but it attacked my parents every time they came home from somewhere. So they didn't let me keep that cat.
But why cats?
Always loved cats. I think cats were always more the size of them, right? So they're much more manageable. I remember having a book and there was like these stories about kittens and just these photographs in them, and but they would get stuck up ladders and they couldn't get down. And I just remembered like they were just gorgeous and beautiful, and that whole thing of oh, a kitten's so cute. But cats are just as cute, and they're really intelligent. They are not aloof. Like that whole thing about dogs are amazing and just love you to bits, but cats couldn't really be bothered. Since lockdown, really, it's amazing how my cats have really thrived with my company, and they're literally with me 24/7. Obviously I'm not working at the moment, so if I'm out for a few hours for the day, I know that they're going to sleep with me that night because they've missed me. They haven't seen me for 4 or 5 hours during the day. They are incredibly intelligent. They give a lot of love. They're independent enough that they don't crowd you. And they really, really do respond to how you are as a person. So, I've been through some ups and downs, and it's amazing. For example, one of my cats he's not a lap cat, doesn't like sitting on laps or anything. But he will sleep next to me to the point where he will literally spoon me at night. But it's just really interesting that when I've had, say, the death of my brother, for example, just before COVID lockdown, and prior to that, another point where there was a very close death, it's the only time he's done this. And he would sit on my chest. He's only ever done that twice. And that's his way of saying, I know you're going through something and I'm going to look after you. It sounds so strange, but it's almost like he senses this, she's not all right at the moment. And there are other times, he's only ever done that with 2 deaths. It's amazing. But there are other times when I'm really, really upset about something, and he will just come and sit next to me somewhere. He'll be somewhere right next to me. The other one is a complete lap cat, and this is, he's the famous one called Sadness because he was a stray and just looked really sad, and so the name sort of stuck. But he is an incredibly happy cat. I've kind of taught him how to play. I've
How can you teach a cat to play? Don't they have it inherently? Like what have you done?
They do, but when they're strays, they lose that ability because they face so much danger. They don't have a home. They don't have somewhere that they can run to for safety. The idea that they're not going to necessarily be fed unless they get manage to get in somewhere and steal food from somewhere. All of those things make them really frightened of life, especially if they've been in a home previously. For a pet cat that then becomes a stray, it's a nightmare for them on the streets or in the gardens. Often they're being attacked by other cats, unneutered cats, all that kind of thing. It took me about 2 years to trap him to the point where I could get him to a vet and get him neutered, check for a chip and all of that. But he wouldn't let me touch him. That was the thing. And it literally took months seriously for me to be able to feed him. And every day I would just move the plate maybe 2 or 3 centimeters closer to the back door. Like I'd put my hand on the plate so that he could smell my hand while he was eating. Initially, he was absolutely petrified of me putting my hand anywhere near him. It took months for me to actually stroke him. And then eventually, he would come in and would spend like 10 minutes inside, that kind of thing. And I would like let him show my other cat show him my other cat who was playing with a piece of string. He would watch that. He would want to play with it, but he was petrified of playing. But then eventually everything was slowly.
But it feels like
Yeah.
there's a lot of lessons for humans as well in terms of that dedication
Yeah.
to play. A lot of us actually forget how to play, and we've had
Yeah.
such a tough couple of years that
Yeah.
actually it's making me think maybe I need to, I am a dog person, but maybe I need to follow the path of Sheetal and the cat. I mean that could be a whole children's book, but that element of play is
Yeah.
really interesting.
Well, cats do like playing. They really do like playing. It's just about finding things that they want to play with. That's what I mean. They are so intelligent. You can make them do things, like I've trained both of mine to sit. So if I say sit, they sit. And you do it like with dogs. Same, you use the same thing, treat. Both of my cats are rescue cats. So they've come to me as strays without homes, not microchipped, unneutered, living on the streets. They were previous pets. You know that because one of them absolutely knew how to use a litter tray and, craves human company. And the other one is a complete lap cat. And that can only happen, trust me, if they've sat in laps while they were kittens. The thing is, even for cats who are 2, 3, 4 years old, if they've got love, if they've got security, if they've got food, they will dance to your tune to a certain degree. Maybe not completely, fully, but they also, you know what? They're grateful. They're grateful to have a home again. And I think, therefore, their behavior adapts to your home life, the home life that has been set by the human. So, yeah. I'm aware that all of this makes me sound like cat lady. Most experts in sort of feline behavior will also say there just isn't enough research in cats, unfortunately, because people have always been much more interested in the sort of reward you get from training a dog. When cats were, because of this attitude, right? This attitude of, oh, cats will just fend for themselves or whatever. Actually, no, they won't. Their behavior is completely different when their humans not around.
So saying that, it just actually reminded me, like not so long ago in the news, and perhaps we're as less absorbed with the news as we used to be in our previous careers. But in the news, there
Yeah.
was a note about coronavirus and the pandemic, the government potential reaction to the pandemic in the early
Yeah.
days, and there was a conversation about potentially catcalling. Came out in
Yeah.
some leaked WhatsApps. Having
Yeah.
heard that, what? I mean, I thought that was pretty hardcore, extreme as
Pretty
a
hardcore.
yeah,
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
thought. But
Yeah.
for
And
you, knowing all this that you already knew, and for me, it's new knowledge around cats. What is your reaction to something like that?
I read those WhatsApps and I just thought, my goodness, it was a moment of realization that, hold on a minute, what if this had happened? And there would have been a major outcry. I mean, it would have just, people would have been up in arms, that there was that potential, could have been that potential that because of this pandemic and how it was affecting humans and the impact on around the world, billions of us, that they would have to kill cats. I mean, for me and for millions of other pet owners, your cat is, yes, it's an animal, but it's also an extension of your family.
I want to know how the film Terminator makes Sheetal Sheetal.
My favourite film, probably of all time, and it's the first one. It's The Terminator from, what is it, 1984, the original Arnold Schwarzenegger, Michael Biehn, Linda Hamilton. I saw that film, I know it's an 18, but I saw it, I think I was about 7 or 8. My brother used to work in a video shop and he brought home a copy once. And all my siblings were older than me, so I had much more eclectic taste in music and films because siblings influence you, right? And I remember watching Terminator and just being completely blown away by the idea of this. It's the first time I'd heard the word cyborg as well, right? 7 or 8 years old, I didn't know what a cyborg was. And I just remember being equally petrified, fascinated, blown away, and fear. I think it injected in me that actually, you know what, oh my god, this could happen. What if this could happen? And now a lot of the time I'll watch something scary, probably because of that, or probably because of Jaws as well, because I watched Jaws at a very young age, and I was really, I remember watching Jaws with the whole family, being quite young, younger than 7, and just being absolutely petrified of going to the loo that night because I was so scared that Jaws was gonna, jump up through the loo. but
Although Jaws
I
is
think,
misinformation, just to make everyone clear, Jaws is
yes,
misinformation. It's just pure fiction.
absolutely. And exactly. I love sharks, and probably on an equal level with Terminator. And I've actually swum with sharks because I love them so much. So, and no cage, no cage. So, there's, I think that element of danger, although sharks are real danger and Terminator is obviously not real danger, but it's that thing of, you know what, how would I be in this situation? What if I was Sarah Connor? How would I get out? What would I do? Would I be as brave as her? How would I react? And this is why I love the first one so much, because I think her fear and her kind of incredulousness that what the hell is this thing that's trying to kill me? Surely none of this is true. And it's that bit in that film towards the end where she thinks he's completely burnt to a cinder after the truck, is blown apart. And then you see this, the metal skeleton just rising from the ashes, and the way she screams, no, no, like, no, this cannot be going on even more. It was just that thing of, I just think that film, for a low budget film, from the mid 80s, which still stands the test of time now. And I argue about this with my husband all the time, that actually, yeah, he does look different. And the reason why he looks different is because his eyebrows were burnt off and things like that, which only a super fan would do. But I think it's instilled in me that there's always this element of danger, and that's okay to have that in your life, because it pushes you to a point where you would then put yourself in a situation that is risky, that is going to test you, that is going to push you to your abilities of survival. Kind of, I don't want to say retribution, but I mean, being able to equate in your mind what you're capable of, but you're not going to be pushed until you face that element of risk and danger, right? And I think as journalists, we've kind of encompassed that within our roles. I know I always loved being in dangerous situations through my job, because you're semi-protected, but you're also challenging yourself to say, I can deal with this, and yeah, so that all comes from the Terminator. How weird. Such a tangent, but I just think, what, sometimes we can look at cultural influences and not see them for what they can do for your life. And I think that's what Terminator's done for me. Yeah.
The wonderful Sheetal Parmar, who brings together integrity, cat whispering, and the Terminator. Do you have an interdisciplinary life? Because I would love to hear from you. Perhaps we can chat on this podcast that goes with my newsletter, which is called Have You Thought About, and can be found via www.drutishah.com. Please join me next time, I will be back, for a great conversation with another guest who likes to mix things up in their life. Thank you to Rian Shah for the music for this podcast.